Why, hello folks. It's Helminth build guide time again. Today we're going to be looking at Chroma. He's a cool guy. And, Chroma has a lot going for him as it is. He's got some of the best damage multiplying abilities in the entire game, and he's just like a huge tank. So, what can you improve on in that regard? That being said, it's also like sort of the case with Chroma that he's not the most exciting Warframe in terms of his like abilities. Most of his stuff is kind of just passive. It's just something that exists in the background, and you're not actively using your abilities to like kill enemies or stuff. You just use them to sort of buff yourself, buff your armor, buff your survivability, buff your health, buff your damage output. So yeah, kind of passive abilities, I would say. They did a rework on him recently. They took his spectral scream and tried to make it more interesting. If you look in the bottom right corner, you see now that you can use it to flip between elements. So it's no longer the case where you have to set what your element is with your like energy color, and then or like your emissive color, and then all of your abilities are like shaped around that. Now you can switch it manually. So I could, if I wanted to, set it to cold, and then I cast elemental ward, and I get the cold armor. I could also flip it to for example, like electricity, and then I shoot my actual thing with this, and it's gonna be electricity damage. You can like flip between them. Interesting, right? That being said, the actual damage output of Spectral Scream itself is still sort of like miserable. It's just pathetically bad. So I've tried to do like Helminth builds built around Spectral Scream and try to sort of make it work and do something fun and buff the damage of that, but like it's useless. It cannot be done. You cannot build around Spectral Scream. And the problem with like flipping between different elements is that like for most things the cold element is the one you want. Elemental ward, it's gonna buff your armor even more, which is usually what you're going for. And if you use your effigy, the cold one is one that gives you like bonus credits and whatnot. So it's kind of pointless to flip between them because cold is pretty much the one you always want. So when it comes to like replacing Helminth abilities, you can replace this number one because you can still set it with emissive colors. You can still use the emissive color to set what the default element is going to be. So even though you can't flip between them, you can still make sure it's always cold. I didn't do that in this case. I removed effigy instead, because like, hey, there are maybe some times when it might be nice, depending on enemy types you're fighting against. Maybe you want more health sometimes, maybe you want more armor sometimes, and maybe you don't want to like just switch emissive colors between missions and whatnot. So I was like, maybe we'll keep it. Because mostly Chroma uses his number 2 and his number 3 abilities for most things anyway. You pretty much only use the effigy to get some bonus credits for when you play Profit Taker anyway. So, what did I do? Well, I added Grendel's Nourish to this, simply because, like, you know what, let's just bump the damage output even more. And you can do that with him. Because maybe you don't know this about Chroma, but he's pretty good. He's got pretty insane damage. Let's take a look at like what it's all about. Chroma is built around Vex Armor. Vex Armor is the ability that everyone in the game wishes they had, but it's Chroma who has it. It's an ability that can massively increase both your armor and your damage output, and it scales with ability strength. So Chroma wants to get this number up as high as he goddamn can. And it's based off of taking damage. Now they've removed self-damage from the game. Self-damage used to be a thing earlier, so you use Chroma, you activate Vex Armor, and then you like fire a rocket straight down into the ground, so you take a bunch of damage, and then you like buff it up. You can't do that anymore. Now you actually have to take damage to build your armor and your damage increase, which is fine. If you play like the Steel Path Endurance, like when you get up to like 30 or 40 minutes or so, even if this were to run out and you have to recast it, you're gonna refill it immediately. So Chroma basically always just walks around with like plus 800% damage or something on his weapons, which is nice. And plus 1000% armor, stuff like that as well. Elemental Ward, if you use the cold version, it gives you even more armor. So these two combined with like this high ability strength means that Chroma effectively has around 6000 armor. Which means that he has somewhere around, I don't know, I think it's like 96% damage reduction. Which is nice. It means that, you know, you're not going to take all that much damage from enemies. Let's look at the build right away. This is the classic Chroma triple umbral build with 2 umbral mods in it. You don't have to go crazy like this. I went crazy like this. You don't have to. For example, you don't need to use primed flow. I use it because it's nice to manage his energy economy, to just have a big energy pool. If you want to, you can instead use Hunter Adrenaline. You take damage all the time and this can be converted to energy. It's less costly. You can save up some mod capacity there. You don't have to use 3 umbral mods. You don't really need to use umbral fiber. I use it just to get my armor really, really high up there. If you want to, you can instead get the survivability from using adaptation in that slot, and you can save up some mod capacity there. Which means you can run it with like just 2 umbral mods and you don't need to use 2 umbral formas like I have in this build. But we're going crazy here. And the thing is, once you do it this way, and once you like just use all 3 umbral mods, the bonus to armor and the bonus to intensify, which also increases his armor passively because it makes his Vex Armor stronger, Arcane Guardian as well, you get such a high armor number that your damage reduction is so good that you like actually do not need adaptation. You just don't need it. Chroma doesn't care about range because mostly he just wants to buff himself. You can buff teammates with your abilities, but like just it's not consistent. So, and why I added Nourish to this, it adds more weapon damage. It adds a damage multiplier, which kind of counts the same way as if you were to add a toxin mod to a weapon. Which is nice because that means with my Nikana Prime, all I have to do is just add a cold. It's just cold damage here. But once I activate Nourish, it's going to combine with the cold and it's actually going to be viral damage. That is how it works. And it's weighed heavily towards slash, so I get these nice slash procs. Yay, for big damage. Now, even though I have a ton of damage reduction, I do still take some damage. So we want to mitigate that. We want to be able to heal as well. For that reason, I'm running the Daikyu. Because it has one specific mod, like this one, the Amalgam Daikyu target acquired. You get this as a drop for fighting the Ropalo list. That gives you lifesteal on Nikanas. That's the important one. So you don't even have to shoot enemies with your Daikyu. Obviously, I've modded this Daikyu to be kind of insane. You can kill pretty much anything in the game with this, because the Daikyu is insane together with internal bleeding. Hey! But this is the mod. With this, we have lifesteal on our Nikanas. It says 3%, but hey, with the damage numbers we're doing with this thing, what's 3% of like 1,000,000 damage? Well, what it means in practice is that you are gonna refill your health to full, like anytime you hit an enemy. Just press E, hit an enemy, there, you're back at full health. Oh, you took some damage, press E, hit an enemy, there, you're back up to full health. So, basically, with this setup, the only way an enemy can kill us is if they one-shot us. But with 96% damage reduction, they're not gonna one-shot us. So we are effectively immortal. You just can't die with this build. Obviously, since, you know, it's built around damage reduction, like, and enemies keep on scaling forever, then yes, you will eventually, up in the thousands, when enemies come up to like level 5,000, level 6,000, whatever, yes, they will actually start one-shotting you. But until then, you're gonna be able to go like a couple of hours in Steel Path and like just nothing can touch you. So, what you do when you play Chroma is you activate his number 2, you activate his number 3, and now you also activate his number 4 to get that buff as well. And you just go in there, right? And as enemies hurt you, you start building up your damage, you start building up your armor. And if you look at the health up in the top right corner, whenever I take damage, I just have to cut one enemy once. And then I'm back up to full health. So as long as I'm just attacking, and hitting enemies, I am effectively immortal. And once we get up to like, 12 combo, and max out these buffs, then the damage starts getting pretty stupid. Now, Elemental Ward cannot be recast until it has run out, but Vex Armor and Nourish can be recast. Vex Armor and Nourish have the exact same duration, so you only have to keep track of your Vex Armor and that little number counting down in the bottom right corner of the screen. Whenever it gets low, just recast it to make sure that your buffs don't run out. And as you can see, with the damage buff that we're getting from Vex Armor, like, you are tearing through enemies like they are made out of butter, literally. Like, it's insane. It's absolutely insane. And we got our lifesteal, so we can't die. We got our damage reduction, enemies can't hurt us nearly fast enough. And you're gonna be able to go. You're gonna be able to go pretty much, as long as you want to with this. Nourish adds more damage on top of the damage you already got from Vex Armor. And it makes it very easy to mod your weapon for that juicy viral damage. Whoopsie. Here. Like I said, all you need is just one cold mod. That's it. And Nourish is going to make sure that it's instead going to be viral damage. And, once you get up to, like, just an hour, 2 hours in Steel Path, you can just have a Kuva nuke or start priming enemies with that. It's the classic way of doing it. Where you jump in, you zap like this, there, now everyone has 10 viral stacks, and now, you're gonna kill them even faster. And that's the build. Like, it's very straightforward. It's very simple. You ignore your number 1 and your number 4 abilities. You basically pretend like those two abilities don't exist. And then, well, now, normal Chroma. Now we have Nourish there instead. So, your number 1 ability, you just ignore it. It does not exist. And your number 2, your number 3, and your number 4, you make sure that they are always active. Number 2 can't be recast until it's run out. Whereas your number 1 and, your number 3 and your number 4, they can be recast whenever you want to. So just make sure they never run out, so you always keep your buffs. And then you just go to town with your melee weapon. Your melee weapon has lifesteal, so you're just going to be healing and healing and healing. They can't hurt you. You're going to be able to kill everything. That's it. That's how you play the game. You press the E button like this. Everything dies. And you keep your abilities active. And you don't die. And you can just go through the entire star chart in Steel Path like this. Like, you can kill anything in a second. And absolutely nothing can touch you. Nothing can touch you. It is very much a brainless build. You don't even have to think about what you're doing. All you have to do is look down in the bottom right corner of the screen and pay attention to your cooldowns and make sure your Vex Armor doesn't run out. That's it. That's the build. And then you just go slashing things and you're fine. You can go through anything in the game like this. They can't hurt you. That's it. That's the build, people. That's the build. Nourish Chroma. He is already a powerhouse. Now we can buff up his damage numbers a little bit more. And that's what he does. Is it the most exciting frame in the world? No, Chroma has never been the most exciting frame in the world. Design-wise, he leaves something to be desired, because it's just passive abilities. It's just buffs, basically. And they tried to make Spectral Scream cool, but they didn't, because it's just kind of useless as a damage dealing ability. So you only have the flipping between elements, which is also kind of useless because most people always only want the cold element. Oh well. But hey, that's the build. If you like playing Chroma, here's, you know, a build for you to take him to the next level and just let him shred anything in the game and nothing can touch him, and that's kind of rad. So, you know, I'll see you again tomorrow for something completely different.